Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen of the press. I want to speak about some matters that have taken place in the last few days. And first of all, I'd like to say that the Bermudian public should not be deceived by innuendo, false accusations, and political rhetoric over the airport development project. It was stated just 2 days ago at a public meeting that the Bermuda airport could be sold by Aecon. That is completely false. Bermudians should be clear that no one, and I say no one, will sell our airport. The Bermuda airport is and always will be owned by Bermuda and her people. In Quito, it was the concession contract that Aecon sold, not the airport. In Bermuda, the government has already publicly stipulated that no such sale will be permitted without the explicit prior approval of the Bermuda government. The fact that the government is still in negotiation with CCC Aecon has been questioned. If negotiations had been completed, the closing of the agreement would have been announced. Well, it hasn't. We clearly are not there yet. I have said on several occasions that the document we signed in August was an interim agreement. Its purpose was to frame the negotiations toward a final agreement. The negotiations themselves are ongoing, and we will only be in a position to provide details of the final contract once it has been agreed and signed. Commercially sensitive information cannot and should not be disclosed until that time. The opposition continued to say that government said this new development would be free. That clearly is false. I have said many times, I think to you, members of the press, and in Parliament, that there's no such thing as a free lunch, neither is there such a thing as a free terminal. What we said was that the cost of the new airport would not increase the public debt. And that statement stands. The company that we call Project Co., which is going to be the company that the new airport will be operating under, Project Co debt will not be debt owed by the government, directly or indirectly. The new airport will ultimately be paid for by users, not the government. So quoting a monstrous amount of revenue accruing to Project Co as though that money all goes to Project Co or Aecon as profit is deliberately deceptive. Let me say that out of the revenue that goes to Project Co has to be paid a number of important things. First of all, the operating costs have to be paid. Second of all, and most importantly, the debt service has to be paid. Then the maintenance has to be paid. Then after that, there has to be a reserve that has to be paid before any profit can go to Project Co Aecon. And I can assure you, just like anybody who has bought a house with a mortgage, that so long as that mortgage is being paid, there's not a whole lot of money left over. And that's exactly the situation that we have here. So people of Bermuda should not be deceived that all of this money is going into Aecon's pocket. It is not. They have some very heavy cash outflows to pay before eventually they get to a position where they're making a profit, and that would be after the debt's paid off. So Anybody who has bought a house knows how debt service works. And that's what these guys are going to have to do with the revenues from the airport. So, the opposition also claimed that the government would use taxpayers' money to pay the new airport's electricity bill throughout the 30-year agreement. This also is false. The actual fact is that the electricity subsidy will come from the use of power generated by the nearby solar plant that will be constructed on the peninsula off the runway commonly called the Finger. This will be built and financed privately, not by the government. The current terminal's Belco bill for the last year was $2.3 million, or $191,700 per month, not $250,000, as was stated. Clearly, another falsehood. Not only do we expect a substantial reduction in the amount of electricity used by the new terminal because of energy efficiencies, but only a fraction of the new electricity generated by the new solar plant will be needed for the new airport. The rest will be sold to the grid. The opposition has stated that the new terminal will have fewer gates than the present facility. Again, false. The new facility will have 8 gates, and those 8 gates will feature jet bridges that will allow passengers to embark and disembark without exposure to the elements, and will be wheelchair accessible. The Bermuda public should ask themselves, what is the motivation behind this constant drumbeat of opposition to an infrastructure project that will replace a crumbling facility, create hundreds of badly needed jobs for Bermudians, and not increase the public debt? The answer? Naked politics. The opposition is prepared to squander the opportunity for us to do what they couldn't do. That is to build a new state-of-the-art airport, create hundreds of jobs for unemployed construction workers, and help rebuild our economy. And to do so without massive addition to public debt. They are simply trying to deny the government's realization of an accomplishment of this magnitude. This is further evidence the opposition continues to put party before country. With those words, I'm quite happy to answer the many questions which I'm sure you have. The Strangeways.
Is it right to say that the Bermuda government is in a deal at the moment, which if it leaves that deal, if it decides to get out of that deal, there are going to be financial implications?
That's correct. Yes.
Can you say what those financial implications are?
The financial implications are pretty much outlined in the airport development agreement. If somebody, if people take the time to read it, it's right in there. And it outlines consequences of exit. Various scenarios, various exit scenarios are outlined in the ADA.
In the document that you've released?
That's correct, in the document that I've released. And so there are certain things where the two parties can walk away virtually with no penalties. Like the first one was, one that comes to mind right off, we had done recently some geotechnical studies down there to make sure that the terminal, that the ground could carry the terminal. This agreement was done before those studies were completed. And so that particular off-ramp situation was saying that, if the ground can't take the terminal, then both sides walk away and call it a good try.
But we're not in that position now.
We're not in that position now because we know that the geotech work has been done and the ground can carry it. So, other scenarios are if we can't get financing, right? So those situations, the ADA deals with those scenarios. the situation with the schedules, which I know you're going to ask me about, is that if these schedules are released, then it'll essentially be a breach of that contract, and then the penalty phase will kick in. So, and that penalty phase is that we would have to pay for all of ACON's costs plus a 20% premium on top of that.
What if the Information Commissioner, who we've now appealed, as you know, our party request to her, what if she says that, what if she rules that they ought to be disclosed? Well,
I think I'll have to really refer that matter to the Attorney General. That'll be a legal situation that I'm not qualified to comment on.
If the Ministry of Finance had adhered to our party request, then you would have been in a situation where the government would have been in breach of an agreement.
That's correct, and that's why we said it was not in the public interest to release that information. Just let me put it in sort of plain terms. When businesses are in negotiation for takeover, for any kind of major contract, while those negotiations are underway, it is the general rule that the parties sign a non-disclosure agreement. And that's basically what this is.
But money's already been spent on this project, right?
No, money's been spent on, has been spent on consultants, like lawyers, our CIBC consultants, people like that.
How much has been spent so far?
I can't tell you the exact number.
But money's been spent, and further money's been committed, taxpayers' money has been committed.
No taxpayer money has been committed. The commitment only comes when we sign the final contract. Right? We have situations where, you know, if one side or the other decides to walk away, then there are consequences. There are monetary consequences. But there are no commitments that have been made by the government yet. I mean, there's no commitment until we sign the final deal.
But there are some commitments if there are financial implications, right?
No, those are it's situations if you walk away. Those aren't really commitments. Commitments.
There'll be an impact on the public purse.
Hypothetically. You know, there's a whole lot of things that can hypothetically be at the public purse, but we have made no commitments because we have not come to a final agreement.
And are you satisfied that the PAC doesn't need to see the schedules?
Totally.
Why?
I've just given you a lot of reasons why. It's the same reasons. You know, we have given information at the request of the PAC, and it became public in a nanosecond. So we're not going to make that mistake again.
Well, why shouldn't it become public? And what are you referring to?
Because I just finished telling you, Sam.
No.
Yeah, that we are in negotiations, and when you're in a negotiation, you keep things confidential until the agreement has been signed.
Sorry, one microphone. We need to share it first.
Okay, I'll just finish this one point. But you're negotiating on the biggest project of this nature that this country's ever seen.
Well, I'm not sure that's exactly true. I think the wing of the KEMH was about the same size, right? And I don't remember the press or anybody hammering the living daylights out of that government trying to get information. I want to say this right now, that there's been more disclosure on this deal prior to the deal having been signed than any other agreement in the history of this country. Yet I'm still getting, you know, I'm still getting pressure from the press to keep releasing more things. You have had more information released to you prior to an agreement being made than at any other time.
Which is great.
Yeah, it is great. So instead of hearing, you know, saying, well, you know, you guys have been open and transparent, the conversation is, what are you hiding? We're not hiding anything. What we're doing is we are conducting this in the normal course of business, where people are trying to negotiate something, and while that negotiation is going on, a non-disclosure agreement is generally in place. You ask any business person, for people in Bermuda who are not familiar with this, ask any business person. They'll tell you that while you're negotiating a deal, both sides swear to keep their mouths shut until the deal is either on or off. And we have gone way more than that situation.
This deal is on, exactly, that's the point.
This deal is not on. You have not seen my signature. You have not seen the financial secretary's signature. You have not seen the Premier's signature on any binding contract to build this airport yet.
May I leap in?
Yes, sir.
Minister, the users that you refer to will be paying for this government include the airlines that use it.
Yes.
Have you had any prior negotiations at all with IATA to discuss their part in this?
Well, I don't expect the amount of money that the airlines pay money to the airport now. Part of the revenues that go to the airport are paid by airlines to use the airport, landing fees and all those sorts of things. There's a lot of different fees that the traveling public doesn't see because it's the cost to the airline. Those costs will just migrate from the Department of Airport Operations to Project Co.
If you have had negotiations?
Oh, yes. I mean, I know that I don't expect them to rise in any significant amount. Any increases in fees that certainly that the government has been involved with have already been done. You know, I've raised airport departure tax, and we had an airport improvement fee put in last year. That was in anticipation of this happening, but there is I don't expect that once this deal is struck there will be some sort of automatic increase in cost to airlines.
Mr. Burt said on Tuesday night, I'm sure, a document was signed in August of 2015. What exactly?
Airport Development Agreement, the ADA, the same one we've been talking about up to now.
You just released. Is there any way the opposition didn't know about what you just said?
Yeah, they knew that it wasn't true. I think they knew that it wasn't true.
Thank you. Can we just go back to the PAC?
Sure.
So you said, Mr. Burt issued that summons, and you said you don't think that summons was valid. Is that right?
That's correct.
He says, under the Parliament Act 1957, he has the power to do that as chairman of the PAC, and obviously you yourself are a former chairman of the PAC. You say he does not have the power to issue a summons.
He does not have the power to do anything without the approval and the consensus of the committee. It's the committee that's got the power, not him.
And in saying that, are you referring to the financial instructions? Is that where?
Standing orders.
The standing order. Is that the standing order?
Standing orders, House of Assembly.
Do you know which section?
I gave those sections in the last press conference I gave.
Okay. So you say that although the Parliament Act gives him those powers,
he's got to have the backing of the committee.
So I now then turn to the November 19th meeting of the PAC, and the transcript of that meeting shows that Government member Cole Simons said, made a motion to for the committee to seek the full agreement.
They asked to see the agreement. I gave them agreement. I redacted the schedules. Now, the summons was for the schedules.
How many
Okay.
pages did you?
Wait a minute. Well, let's get this clear. The summons wasn't for the ADA. The summons was for the schedules. There was no resolution by the Public Accounts Committee to get the schedules from the government.
You just said I would suggest that we get a copy of those agreements that have been signed to date. I would say that includes the schedules. Wouldn't you?
Oh, the summons was for the schedules.
Right.
And I said, no, let us be clear about this, right? They asked for the airport development agreement. We gave it to them. We redacted parts of it which we thought was sensitive. Now, that should have been the end of it insofar as the original request was concerned. Now, there was a summons for the schedules, right? That was a separate issue, okay? And that issue...
Your interpretation of what the...
And so is the Attorney General's, not just mine, right?
That was,
Just one last question. There's still a large percentage of locals that are against this.
I don't buy that.
What might you say to that?
I don't buy. I don't accept that. Right. You know, I just don't accept that that is true.
We did a poll on that, Minister, which did show that there was, did you?
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah. Yeah, I've seen that.
This deal will still go through.
The government's intention, we were elected with a mandate to create jobs. Now, if anybody's against this, it's because they're against the creation of hundreds of jobs for Bermudians. So it depends how you ask the question, right? This project will create hundreds of jobs for Bermudians and will replace a facility that essentially is a disgrace.
Despite there's a large amount of Bermudians that are against this
Well,
deal.
we will persuade many of those people once they get appreciation of the full facts and the full story in the face of a fusillade of misinformation, or much of which, or some of which, I have outlined today. I mean, let's just look at what the misinformation that was given to the public 2 days ago. No wonder people don't want it, because they're getting told a pack of lies, right? Once we get the information out there, people will support this.
Right, we're down to one last question.
Minister, can you just give us some clarity on the setup of the company Project Code?
Okay, clarity on Project Co. That is obviously a fake name, right? Because the company, a company will have to be formed to sign the contract with the government. That company will be owned by Aecon plus other investors. That is a company that will have the concession. So it doesn't have a name yet, so we refer to it as Project Co.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Can I ask one last question, Minister? Did you warn the government members of the PAC not to attend the April 14th?
No. No, I didn't.
Can you give us any more information on the solar farm being built on the Bermuda?
It's something that we have kind of going in parallel to this, but as I say, it should be going out to tender pretty soon, and the tender is going to include not only the build, but the finance. So as I mentioned before in my prepared remarks, that facility will be done by the private sector, financed by the private sector, not the government.